This is Constitution House, a building which hosts the Drug Problem Centre, a drug service which supports a vast number of people with substance abuse problems across Dundee, and is the main clinical and admin base for the city. It recently went through a rapid improvement event, which involved those accessing the service. They believed it wasn't fit for purpose. It needed to change how it looked to make it more welcoming. They believed it also needed to change how it delivered its services and how it engaged with its clients.
I first of all thought, well, let's get some art on the walls. And you see places like Ninewells where they've got beautiful art on the walls in Ninewells. So I went down that route to begin with. But then it sort of slowly developed in thinking, well, okay, it's okay to have a nice picture on the wall, but wouldn't it be more amazing if those pictures on the walls were actually done by the service users, which I think is much more powerful.
The service began running a weekly art workshop, where people could create artworks using a variety of media. They could draw, do art collage, lino printing, create stencils and do graffiti, and create any pieces they wanted.
These are patients who've never even picked up a pencil to do any drawing before, so it's been quite astonishing. And we've got lots of things in frames, and we're slowly getting them up on the wall. It's clear that being in a group that is thinking about creativeness and art takes their mind off other things, and it certainly helps them in their recovery.
The impact of the workshops on people's recovery highlights just how beneficial a creative approach to recovery can be. Workshop coordinators Ian Tyack and Jonathan Hood explain why it's so important that this continues.
I think it's very important to keep it consistent and keep it going, as we are doing weekly class every Wednesday for a couple of hours. So that bit is quite safe, and they get to know that it's on every week and to come, because their life can be sometimes a bit erratic. We've got some regular people that we see every week, and they benefit from that. So I think it's very important to keep it going. We need support for that to happen. And for the people that uses this project.
And I know that certain sections of society kind of regard this as superfluous, but I'm of the belief that it's a very, very necessary. It's a very necessary thing in the human psyche. Is creativity, and if we can imagine a world that didn't have any creativity. Any artistic creativity, would be a very, very sorry, sad place. This creative energy that I think is, I don't know whether it's by design or by accident, is suppressed, and I think that leads to all sorts of trouble in later life. You know, there's a lot of people, very frustrated people wandering around that say, oh, if only I could paint, or if only I could play the guitar, or if only I could write a book. And it's in everybody, this inherent artistic bent, I feel. And this is why these workshops, I feel, are so important.
One person who understands the importance of creativity more than most is artist Lorraine Nicholson. She suffers from clinical depression, a mental illness which almost cost her life, as it drove her to attempt suicide. She used art and poetry as a way to cope with the illness, so that she could begin to rebuild her life.
Well, I didn't know initially how important it would be, but it was part of me. It was such an essential part of who I am that it became an obvious tool for me to have pulled out of my inner resources to use. And I found it highly effective in being able to express and try to make sense of what I was going through and what I'd been through. And it revealed a lot of the underlying issues which were being medicated and covered over. So it put me through a lot of pain and a lot of turmoil to raise these issues and confront them, but in the long term, it's helped me to move on in my life. I know that in cancer care treatment, for example, and through Maggie's centres, that art is readily accessible to patients as a way of processing emotion at a deeply distressing time. And it's paid for, it's accepted, and it's sustainable payments, sustainable funding that's going into these resources. But in mental health care, And in addiction issues, it's not accepted as part of the service for people in recovery. And I think that emphasis is as important, if not more important, in terms of recovering from mental health issues and addiction issues, because it's such an important resource to be able to have as a choice. It's an alternative language that people can speak. But I think some people have a visual response to the world in general, and I think there should be that option for people to speak their own individual language and being offered that choice in their recovery journey.
This has been the case with people like Derek and Barry who attend the Drug Problems Centre, as they've had the option to try new things and express in other ways.
Going through the motions of going through emotions, when you felt lonely and depressed, when life seemed like one big fuck off mess, but learn to get enthusiastic when things start to turn and get excited and optimistic that you ain't ever going to be in our suicidal statistic. It's just sometimes life can seem so sadistic. It's hard enough to tell what your own reality is when you're wishing to mark everybody else's life better by marking one massive witch. They'll throw a penny into a wishing wheel and say, oh well, such is life that I need to put up reality strife. Show me somebody that leads a simple life. Because you've been here and there and here, fucking everywhere. But nothing ever changes if nothing ever changes. Still marking up excuses to mark themselves blameless for the things that we've done that were Gallagher shameless.
The sky's the limit of what you can do, you know, so it's basically just what you agree on, everybody agrees on doing, you know. Could be you don't want to do something that you like and nobody else likes, you know. You've got to agree on something that everybody likes and you'd think other people would like as well, not offensive to other people. So for the next stencil job in here, for the walls, we're thinking about doing this monkey on a branch coming from the TV there. The monkey sitting on a branch there or here on a branch or up or wherever in larger scale.
The workshops can give people a sense of pride in their work, in the building, and in themselves. They can also give people more responsibility, something senior project worker Joe Novichelski believes is vital.
People need to feel more in control of their own recovery. People need to take charge a bit more. They can't rely on the workers to fix everything for them, because that can't happen, that won't happen. They need to want to change things. They need to be able to have a more trusting relationship with the workers. Not one where they're trying to beat drug tests and get what they can out of the service. They need to genuinely want to recover. Now, some of the staff have been in this game for a long time, I certainly have, and we've had to change our attitude as well. It's quite easy to slip into the wrong kind of attitude where, you know, you get beaten down over years of working with people that are trying to con you all the time, and we want to change the nature of that relationship. We want to be working together to help folk recover.
This is why events such as the Dundee Partnership Conference are so important, as it can do just that. It brought together people from a range of backgrounds, which included clinical services, community groups, the police, and also people in recovery, to look at why attitudes towards recovery need to change.
There's something about, it's not just that you create the expectations, we're doing it to people as well, and there's something about this slightly sinister aspect to recovery for me, which is how the rest of us use it almost as the difference between good people and bad people. The good people are trying to recover and getting there, but there's still a group of bad people who don't get in. That really dangerous sense that, you know, somehow you have to apply for readmission to humanity as if you're ever outside of it.
There seems to me to be a crossover, an effective crossover there between what you might call a therapeutic approach and what you can call an enforcement approach. And the risk of being glib, I'm overweight, and if I go to my doctor says, right, take this exercise regime, adjust what you're eating, see our dietitian, come back in 3 months. When I come back in 3 months and I haven't lost weight, maybe I've even put weight on, they don't say, bugger off and die, do they? But we do in a criminal justice sense often. We put them back through the revolving door.
The conference also gave people an opportunity to discuss how they could work together to facilitate recovery for people across Dundee.
Recovery is to do with everybody, and actually no matter what your job or where you live or who your family is, you do have some responsibility around recovery, and there is actually a lot that you can do.
They're learning from each other, do you know what I mean? It's educating the community and getting that community spirit back, you know, where you actually care about your next door neighbour. You know, that was something that was there like 16 years ago when I was like 10, but now it's non-existent, you know what I mean? The community centres and things like that, you know, people don't care about the next door neighbour anymore, do you know what I mean? A lot of the time.
Maybe a day like today should be targeted towards management groups and community centres, KIP sessions, all of these different places that's got facilities, that have got programmes that are running for people in the community. A session like what we've had today, targeted at those kind of people who have the influence in the communities, who have the capacity within the communities to involve service users in their programmes, some of which are educational, some of which are aspirational, some of which are just fun.
It seems focusing on community involvement could be key, not just for those in recovery, but also for the community itself.
The community that's had a powerful and still has a powerful and strong experience of addiction, which includes getting your house robbed, putting things up, you know, things going on fire. I've been mugged a few times, they never got anything, but you know, that's our experience, and we tend to label that in our head as that's about drug-seeking behaviour. So we have a really strong and raw experience of the effects of that. We see it in families. We don't have a comparable experience of recovery as a community unless you're connected, unless you know someone in recovery, unless you've been to a fellowship meeting, unless you've seen the effects of treatment a few years on, if it's worked well and people stay in recovery, you see that move from someone who was once, whether you call it client, patient, service user in this country, to becoming friend, colleague, boss even. Yeah? You see that journey. So the challenge for us as a community is we'd have to see people as a bit more fluid than we saw before. The challenge for us as a city is how do we make that journey easy for people? How do we facilitate that more?
It seems clear that this joint-up approach is one way to help facilitate the recovery journey. And Andy Perkins of Figure 8 Consultancy believes that we need to find other solutions.
We've got to find new ways. The ways we've had of supporting people into recovery, into the journey that they want, in the main haven't worked. You know, we've got too many people stuck in the service landscape in treatment, and people are not getting, you know, all the national targets about getting people into treatment, into service provision, and there's no targets or no emphasis on getting people back out into normal living. So we've got to find new creative ways of doing that, and that doesn't necessarily mean reinventing the wheel. It doesn't necessarily mean extra resources. It means about that engagement with communities.
Clinical treatment in itself is only part of the picture when we're trying to get people along their road to recovery, if you like. We want people to aspire to get back into life. You know, they've been living this kind of one-track life, and when they come here for treatment, it had been so clinical in the past. And that's just a tiny part of it. We're trying to get people to reintegrate into society, to feel part of things more, to feel like they belong the same as everyone else in our community.
I mean, ultimately, I hope that we've got people that are coming in now that will just kind of wake up one day and go, right, I'm going to go to art college, or I'm going to go to university, or I'm going to do something that's going to improve me myself. And I've known a lot of people that have fallen by the wayside through heroin use and opiate use. Some of them sadly no longer with us, but eventually, hopefully, they'll manage to sort of leave that behind and live a very, very productive, useful life.
Art is just one way of maybe involving the patient group in something different that makes them feel valued and more of a human being, that they're being useful, that they might even discover a skill or a talent that they didn't realise, you know. And it doesn't necessarily have to be art, it could be anything, you know, anything to take them away or take them out of the normal way that they're living, to try and sort of separate, you know, the drug side of their life, drug taking side of their life, into something that's different and new and that can help them move forward. I think it's really important, but it could be anything, it doesn't have to be art. Art was just one of the things that worked here.
The success of the art workshops run at Constitution House, previously considered an entirely clinical service, highlight that change is possible and can have a positive impact. Having options for people in services and in their community, including creative engagement, will be key to helping them on the pathway to recovery. And with partnership working and the right support, hopefully people can take some control and move on with their lives.